Hi all, welcome to Watch Your Game, episode 32. We've now been going for 33 weeks, because I did take 1 week off for Christmas. And these guys take us to just over 70 projects have come and talked to us about what their game is. So it's been going really nicely. Still got quite a few projects in the wings to come up and chat to us. Maybe having a week or two off, but that will be confirmed via Twitter just because of Web2 life getting very busy all of a sudden. And apparently being a seal on Twitter isn't an adult thing to be doing. So I might have to be Web2 life for a little bit, but we've got plenty of projects ready to come up and talk to us when I am doing them again. It might be next week, who knows. I'll be the host for the hour and a half. Gaspode do various bits of content across multiple platforms, just mainly like trying out new games and introducing people to the new games as I play them. I also work as Fruitix marketing manager, and they should be in the space, but I seem to have got rid of them. That is a game that I've been doing the marketing from, so I'm kind of getting to see both sides of the curtain at the moment, being both a content creator and the marketing. So that's quite fun, interesting thing to be doing. We'll have a quick look at some of the games we've had up previously just to see who's had anything going on this week. And then we're going to be talking to MetalCore with Fresco and I always keep butchering this, My Angry Yakuza Girlfriend with Sinjin. So they're our guests for today. But I'll have a quick look, see what we've had going on. So we had AI Arena as a guest previously. That is a basically Valhalla brawler kind of thing. You are on a platform and you have to kick someone off, but you don't kind of fight against other people. What you do is you fight a dummy and then you train an AI to fight how you would, and then your AIs battle it out. Last time in the first tournament, I was 49th, and you had to be 50th to kind of win their mint. So they're doing a compete to mint, so the top players get a mint pass for when they actually launch their mint. This time, I think I ended up about 19th, so I have done better. So that's been going on recently. Who else have we had up doing stuff? I am going to do a shout out for Anna. She is doing a LinkedIn, I guess you wouldn't call it a Twitter space, but a LinkedIn space tomorrow, chatting to a couple of people out of one of the gaming communities. I was meant to be on it, but I've double booked myself and didn't realize I was going to need to be by a computer, and I currently look homeless, so I wouldn't be on camera a great deal in the light. When I stream at night, it's good because I've got the lights off, so no one can really see me. And then what else? There was one last game that was launched in a tournament, and I think it was Blast Royale. Have got their big tournament coming up. I think it's this week or next, but I'll just get it right. March Madness tournament. So it'll be starting from the 27th of February, so it's starting next week. They are doing $300 of Matic prize pool, 200 competitors, and top score kind of wins the tournament. As you win different rounds, you get different trophies, and you climb the ranks that way. So that's just a quick look at some of the projects we've had up previously. The space, we kind of keep it light and casual. So if you are in the audience and you have any questions, do feel free to request to come up and speak, and you can come and ask questions to these people. If you're not someone who does come up and speak often, make it your first time. Or if you prefer, you can use the speech bubble in the bottom right-hand corner, and you can post your questions there, and then I will read them out for you. I have pinned the space to the top, so if you want to share it out and let everyone else know, it is pinned to the top to make it easier for sharing. But without any further ado, we will go to Fresco first to hear about MetalCore. So who are you and what's your game?
Hey, what's up, guys? My name's Jerry. I prefer to go by that because I turned 30 this year, and just I felt like I should rebrand as my name. So Jerry's good. I'm the partnerships manager for MetalCore. I've been in this role for a few months now. Was working with the team kind of silently and behind the scenes before that. So been on the team for a little bit. We're building a mech based first person shooter. Our vehicle combat elements have third-person shooting elements. So anytime you're in a vehicle, you're a third person. So kind of a blend of two different shooter genres, and we have MMO, kind of like an MMORPG game with a lot of PvP elements. So kind of a lot of crafting and exploration, and if you're not really a competitive player, there's a lot of PvE elements. So building like this large scale game, the goal for us is to we're pretty open about having like large scale battles. Like think like 50 on 50 type battles over control of the map with different game modes, whether it's team deathmatch or domination, with a lot of lore kind of tied into it. What we're doing is pretty expansive, but we've been building this thing out for probably about 18 months now, and we're featured at PAX West and TwitchCon, so got a lot of good reception there from like the Web2 gaming world, and just kind of grinding away at this thing. Have some cool news coming out here in the next few weeks, and just kind of have our heads down building right now. But there's going to be a few announcements for us in the next few weeks, like I said, and super happy to be here, Gaspode. Thank you. I know you tested the game for a bit. Jinky is one of our content creators, and we're live every Friday right now, and should be expanding that pretty soon.
Yeah, I did get to jump in. I did enjoy it. It did melt my computer slightly, but that's more on my computer thing, because I did start it off looking as best graphics as it could, because like, this looks really good. And then between that and having to record at the same time, my computer just started to give a little sad tear. So I turned the graphics down slightly, but I was still able to enjoy the game with it. It just didn't look quite as clean as some of the videos that you guys have been putting out. So I did enjoy it though. I think I'll be, once it's open a bit more and there's a few more people in it, I think it'll be more enjoyable to have a bit of competitive rivalry as you're going through, because I was chasing people around the map trying to find them, but it was so big and my little tank was so small that by the time I'd got there, they'd killed everyone, taken over the base and disappeared, because they were better machines. So I felt like a little toddler chasing around after adults.
And it's one of those things that's, it's such a funny thing to be in a game that's like really early stage, right? Because like when you're making the game and before people have played it, you're kind of stuck with your own biases, right? And so admittedly, the first vehicle you get, like the little tank, sucks. Like the game, like for the first like 10 minutes is kind of not that fun until you get like into mechs, and then you start having a ton of fun, right? And stuff like that is like a little bit of a headache for us. Like I wish that the game was fun like right off the bat, but a lot of that is just the reason we're doing like we have our servers open every Friday is like we're pulling so much data from those play sessions and what people are doing, what people are enjoying, and also obviously you test your infrastructure and see how your servers can handle things, but you also are learning about like what do people like about your gameplay experience, and like what do they not like, and what do we think might be really cool but like everybody else is telling us kind of sucks. Those things are really critically important to somebody developing a game. So the game really, you start to see the full potential of the game once you start to get into mechs and the planes and all that stuff. When you're in that first tank, it's kind of like depressing, because you're just like, you feel so handicapped. I know, like when Jonah was playing, he was so like, he was really jealous of the people who were like dogfighting and stuff in planes, and he was like, that's cool that everybody else is over there having fun and I'm over here just like in this stupid tank.
just sat at the kids' table while everyone else is enjoying the adults one there. No, I get that, but you have to have some sort of level of kind of progression. So if you start all the best stuff, then it'll be fun to start with, but then there's nothing to kind of push you further forward. So I get the idea of progression, and I think if there was more, because like you say, at the moment it is open at certain times, and obviously sometimes those time zones don't work for people. And I'm going to circle back to how you guys are doing that, because I think it's really interesting how different games are tackling the kind of critical player mass kind of side of things. But I think once there's a few more people and there's maybe a couple of you chopping around in the terrible tanks, you can have like the kids battle off to one side, and leave the adults fighting elsewhere.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And
Oh,
go
go
ahead.
on then,
Go ahead.
sorry. I was just going to say, and with that kind of feedback that you're getting, I know it is one of the big things that kind of Web3 always champions is kind of building in public, working with the community sort of thing. How are you finding that feedback, and how are you? Because I know everyone always says, "Oh, we listen to the community, listen to the community," but the main part for me is listen to the community, and then decide who to listen to a little bit, because sometimes not all feedback is as good as other feedback. How are you kind of finding the feedback coming from the community, and is it mainly game focused, or is there still a lot of when pump sort of thing going on?
Yeah, I mean, I think to that latter point, we were a free mint, right? So we didn't ask anybody to spend $1 on it. People have chosen to. Um, so I don't think we really get a lot of the like when pump kind of questions. I think, when they do happen, my answer to that is like, MetalCore will be a free to play game when it comes out fully, right? When we launch and go to market. Right now it's gated. And so you need to have an NFT to play, or you need to have an access code. If you have an NFT, you get 3 access codes, so you can get your friends involved and all that stuff. But um, I always tell people, like, I want a very low end. Like, while it is gated, I want our NFTs to be kind of like at a lower price point, because like I want people to come and play the game. I don't want them to, like, I was just talking in like the holders chat for in Jonas server, like Dookie Dash had like a $5,000 entry point, right? Like, is that accessible? Like, is that feasible? Like, no. Did Warm like XYZ help that stuff? Yes, it did. But ultimately, what we need in Web3 gaming is adoption, right? And so if I want 50,000 people to play MetalCore, I can't price them out of it, right? So I think when you think long term, you don't really care about like the price of what your NFT is like currently, because if it's $30 right now, like, well, that's less than the price of like a game on Steam. So but I mean, all that said, we don't really get a lot of like the when pump type questions. I think we have the benefit of being a game that's building like at a pretty high level, and so people, if you can think with a year's time frame, obviously can't make any promises about prices, but I think people are going to be pretty happy, right? And to your first point, like about how do we kind of like receive like that feedback, and to me, like as somebody who's like not a game developer and who doesn't work on like that side of like the studio, I love it, right? I love the feedback, because like what do I want to build and what's my goal is like I want to, put a huge dent in onboarding like the next million new wallets, right? And I think MetalCore has a great chance to do that. So the feedback to me is hugely important. I think sometimes when you're looking at like artists and developers and like the game designers and stuff, like it's their baby a little bit more than it's my baby. My baby is, like I said, bringing on, a lot of new wallets. For them, it's the gameplay design, right? So I love the gameplay, like feedback that we get. I love like the onboarding feedback that we get, because it helps me, position us to, accomplish what like we all want to see, right? Games, people coming in and playing games in Web3. Generally, the team's like really receptive to the feedback. We don't really ever have anybody who is like on the team who like pushes against it or anything. But there is like a little bit of a balance point where like sometimes people want things that are like crazy, right? Like we have like one particular community member. He's awesome, one of my favorite people, but he'll send me a message and he'll be like, "Hey, on Friday, can we add like this, and this to the game?" And you're like, "Dude, like that would take us 2 months. We can't do that in like 3 days." So you have to kind of like, you know, you build with the community, but like you have to set realistic expectations of like what can happen on what time frames. But obviously our goal is to build something that like our early supporters enjoy too. So it's very important to us. And I mean, I think generally game design is it's hard for people to have a lot of like commentary on, not knowing like how the sausage gets made sometimes. Um, but if it's something like realistic, like we want to implement everything that we can into this game. So um, yeah, we don't really get a lot of like crazy requests or anything. I think it's just a matter of like having people understand like timelines and how difficult game development can be. Yeah, and I didn't understand, like I this is my first really entry into building a game and taking a part of that, and it's a lot. There's a lot more that goes into it than I would have ever thought.
100%, I can definitely relate to that. I'm always suggesting bits from marketing side for the game I'm on, which like halfway through I'm starting to think, actually, I'm saying a lot here, and for me it's really easy just to throw out this idea saying, oh, this would definitely be really cool, we should 100% do this, and just hear kind of the devs groaning in the background because it's easy to say, hard to do kind of thing. And I definitely agree with that kind of expectation front of people understanding how long and how expensive like projects can actually be, so they can have a more realistic time frame. But it sounds like you guys are kind of managing that quite well, and your community is actually pretty receptive to it. That's good to hear. On the free to play side, how does the NFTs come into it? Because one of the things with kind of the kind of paradox of mass adoption that people are always talking about is everyone keeps talking mass adoption, but then also talking kind of limited NFTs, which sometimes means limited access, which don't really go hand in hand with mass adoption. So kind of how are those two linking together for you?
Yeah, that's actually one of my favorite questions, one of my favorite things to talk about, because it's like the most important question. Because like we know like the statistics of like people who are playing Web3 games, like it's like maybe 10,000 people, right? And that's not like a daily number. That's like a monthly number, right? So yeah, I mean like NFTs are huge, right? They're like every Web3 game will incorporate them in some facet, right? But their NFTs in gaming are also some like it's a solution to a problem that I don't think gamers were really looking for a solution for, right? And for like this room, we see the benefits of NFTs, right? But like I think the gamer as a whole doesn't really see the need for NFTs. Um, and so how do you tackle that, right? It's for us, it is implementing NFTs in the game, but not requiring NFTs, somebody owning NFTs themselves to have a full gameplay experience, right? Um, so with that, the scholarship model that exists in currently in Web3 gaming, I think isn't really something that's like inviting to, you know, any of us that would want to come play a game, right? It's like the Axie model, right? You find somebody in like an underdeveloped country who could use the extra money, and you have them go play it, and you keep 50 and they keep 50, right? And I don't think that's like really conducive to like the mass market of gaming. So basically, our answer to that is like we need frictionless onboarding and ease of onboarding. It needs to feel like any other game. So you don't need a wallet to play MetalCore, or you won't need it. You need to have an access code now, right? You don't need a wallet. You don't need to connect your wallet to anything, and it will always be that way. You're not going to need to connect MetaMask or any type of wallet. You're just going to need an email and a password, right? So, and you're free to play game. Anybody can play it. Um, you know, the model that exists right now is almost a little bit like a lot of games are their NFTs mean you unlock something sooner. It's what does that translate into for me? It's you're making like a pay to win game, right? Which is not fun either because like we're going to be a competitive game. So if somebody has a overpowered mech right off the bat, like that's not exactly fair to the free to play player. So our answer to that is to have NFTs and to have like a frictionless rental system, and frictionless to the point that you just need to kind of be in what we call like our in-game clans, or it's called a barony. Um, if you don't want to participate in like the Web3 aspects of the game, you don't need to do that. You just need to be in a barony, and if the barony has items available to it, you can go use those items in the game. So it'll feel pretty. There's not going to be like a ton of transactions that need to go on because of that. You'll walk into your barony's garage, grab what you need, and you can go battle, right? We will encourage people to take control of their assets. We will encourage people to participate in the Web3 elements of the game, but we're not going to require it because we don't want to freeze anybody out of the game. So basically, yeah, I mean, it's you can choose to do what you want with MetalCore. So if you want to craft something and have your NFTs and all those things, you can do that. But if you want to have a full gameplay experience with just without any of that, you can do that, right? And on the other half of that, as knowing that that's how we're going to be operating and building, you need to educate the people who do want to learn about wallets and ownership, right? So we will, 100% be these people's battle buddies and learning how to navigate in like crypto and Web3, because none of us had that, right? I always say, like, tell people it's a miracle that I never got hacked, because like when I first got a wallet, dude, I was spending everything. So the fact that I've never had my wallet drained is like kind of amazing to me, but like that's a pain point for crypto. How many people aren't here because like they've lost things, right? So you also have to like properly educate people and teach them how to operate at the very minimum within some of these games, safely. They don't have to take part in DeFi protocols and lending or anything like that. But we're asking these people to come play our games. We need them to come play our games because none of these games are going to be sustainable with 2,000 DAUs, right? We need a lot more than that. So you have to make that process easy and understandable for them.
And I think that's partly where the idea of the kind of barony, as you were calling it, and other ones are going guilds or factions, kind of the similar idea. I think that's where you'll end up seeing a lot of kind of user-generated education, because people want to help out other people who are kind of in their like subsection of the community for it. And with those baronies, you're saying about sharing assets. Will they also have kind of a purpose in game as well? So just because we're a barony sharing assets amongst each other, kind of on the Web3 side, would we also then kind of fight together as a team on the maps?
Yeah. So, we have like the game lore has like 4 factions that are kind of like at war, and baronies will take place, in parts of that, right? So that there will be like a lot of influence over the continuing story of like when you drop into the world of metalcore and the story is continuing itself, right? You are an active participant in that, and baronies are critically important to that. And beyond that, it's like we're looking at kind of ways to explore. So if you create a barony, right, you have to have 50 metalcore NFTs, right, and that can be like we have some one-person baronies, right, like some of our whales. But if you're a barony, let's say you can use anything as an example. Like let's say you want to make the Gaspode barony, right? Well, like you can put your own branding in the game, and we're gonna give you an area like in the game that's like for that barony that you guys kind of have a little ownership over, and it can kind of help, drive the story and drive the lore. And so, it's going to be, I think, something that's engaging and fun, and a lot of like UGC and content is created around, because I think people will want to take part in like driving that, not just the development of the game like we're talking about like a few minutes ago, but like the ongoing path forward for the game.
And you touched on content creation UGC there, and that sounds interesting from the idea of putting your barony into the game. I definitely see a lot of people having fun with that. But you touched on kind of UGC and content creation. I know that you guys have a content creator program. I know Jinky's in there. How important are you seeing kind of content creation for getting more players and more eyes onto the game?
Oh man, so it's like super important. Like anybody who's like involved with like developing a game or like building a game, like my like piece of free advice to anybody is like empower content creators that are around you, because one thing I think that people don't realize in the world of gaming and going to market is how expensive user acquisition can be and how difficult it can be. You either have to have a really talented team, or you can throw a lot of money at it. Some of these firms charge like upwards of like, 10, 15, $20,000 a month for user acquisition. And like straight up in Web3, the companies that are charging you that suck. Like they are not good. So if you take people who are interested in your game and you empower them and you support them in playing your game, and make that accessible for them, make it easy for them. I don't care how many viewers somebody has. If they have 5 viewers, that's a reach of 5 people that I didn't have yesterday, right? If they have 500, that's great too. Like that's 500 people that all I had to do was give them like an NFT, or give them an area in Discord to publish their link and get a few more people to go check them out. It's a mutually beneficial thing. And like, what do we all want in gaming? What is like one of the big selling points of gaming, right? You want things to be mutually beneficial, like a two-way. You want it to be a two-way street, because right now in gaming, Web2 gaming, it's a one-way thing, right? The company is making all the money and you get really just entertained there, right? Well, Web3 kind of solves some of those things. So why would we not do that with our content creators, right? It's free marketing or very minimal marketing. I mean, yeah, like UA is expensive, man. Like to get like the cost basis of getting like one user is a lot more than people would think, right? And then to turn that user into like revenue generation, even harder. So support your content creators, man, because like they're taking a chance on your game before anybody else is. So show those people some love.
Yeah, I see Golden Hand. I'll come to you in a second, Golden. But no, I kind of agree. Obviously, I'm going to be biased of it. But part of the thing I wanted to pick up on was the idea of kind of 5 views. The way I see it now is that not much of what we've got at the moment really gets searched for. No one's sort of coming in to see it. But as the game expands and more people start seeing it and the audiences in the space in general start growing, having kind of that back sort of catalog of games of people who've been playing it as it's been developed. Like some people won't care; they'll just want to see what the game looks like now. I want to jump in it there. But there will be people who will be interested to see kind of how it kind of was built, and that might turn them into more like even though they weren't there while it was happening. It definitely gives them more of an experience of understanding kind of why the game is the way it is, and they'll be able to connect more with the kind of OGs that you might have in the community itself. And just on the getting charged loads, I was had a call with someone to help with ours, and it was going well. And then at the end they go, "Ah, so you're only in closed alpha, so we don't want to go wild, so we'll just start something small. So if you just start with like 15 grand," I was like, "Oh, yeah, that's definitely got the wrong end of the stick. If you think I've
Yeah.
just got 15 grand lying around
Yeah, and
casually."
like, dude, some people do. Like, we raised a lot of money. Like, if we wanted to pay for that right now, we could, right? We were well funded. But what about somebody who's just bootstrapped this with like their own money, or like on the back of one NFT sale, and has to pay people, and try to get a reach of 100,000 ad views? Like, that's not going to come cheap to people, right? So if you have content creators who are willing to stream your game, like they're supporting you early as a game creator, like they're taking a chance on your game early for the hope that your game does take off, right? And then they will reap the benefits of those things later on. But like in the meantime, they're just putting out content for you. They're giving you an audience. They're giving you viewership, and they're taking a chance on you too. So just help those people out a little bit, and you know, um, and yeah, I mean, on the other side of it, like I built two different Twitch streams out to like 50-ish like viewers, concurrent viewers at a time. Like I was just under partner. So one was when Overwatch came out, right? So through some connections that I had before, I was one of the first people that got access to Overwatch, like the first Overwatch, and I started streaming it. And because I was like one of like 15 people that was playing it, I built this stream like kind of out of nowhere to get decent viewership, right? And then as more people started to play, they needed an education point for like, how do you play Overwatch? What does Mercy do? What does Farah do? How do you like play this game at a higher level, right? So I got a ton of benefit from that. And then the other time was during the pandemic, which people just needed entertainment. Built up another stream, and kind of, I was a firefighter at the time, so didn't really have as much free time to, keep gaming and all that stuff. So kind of, let those things go. But like, I was in the right place at the right time as a content creator. So, and I saw the benefit of that. So for us, these people who are putting out things right now for us, who are helping us with free marketing or minimal cost marketing, you know, um, our hope for them is that MetalCore does take off. We can ship the game that we want to. We can ship the game in the way that we've been telling people that we can. And when there's 30,000 people playing it, now you have a way bigger audience because you took a chance on us. We want to reward that.
100%, and I definitely agree. And I see Graslow down in the audience, and I know he's done something really good with that with Oldor when it released its first slice a couple of weeks ago. But Golden, you've got your hand up. What's your question?
My question is, have you thought about extending to different type of content creators? Because like you have lore and stuff behind your MetalCore's war, and so I know a lot of people aren't really necessarily thinking about it, but writing like stories and whatnot that take place with like maybe making up characters and having things take place and allowing people to read it as like a book form or maybe a comic or animation or something like that.
It's a phenomenal question, really. That's a very, very good question. So I actually don't head up the content creator program. That's we have one of our guys used to be like a mixer partner, and he's the head of the content creator program. I don't know what is like in the works for that, but I mean that's a phenomenal idea, right? So I'll definitely like take that to him. I don't know what he's like working on right now and what he's not. But yeah, I mean, content creation doesn't begin and end at like live streaming or pre-produced videos that are play-alongs or anything like that, right? Content creation means a lot of different things, and so yeah, no, that's a great idea. Appreciate that.
It's just how you build up IP. Like MetalCore right now is an intellectual property, and so building up IP is using it in every single form. And you look at like Hogwarts Legacy, which right now is like the biggest selling game of the year. They come from like the Harry Potter universe, even though like all that crazy stuff is happening with J.K. Rowling. So many people still love Harry Potter, so they're gonna buy and play the game. So it's just something that's there in Web3, but not everybody's using it with the amount of artists and stuff like that. Just a comic book or a web, a graphic novel would be something that would be dope.
Yeah, no, that'd be awesome. And there's like as you're saying that, there's two games that come to mind. I talk about them all the time because I think that they're, I think super highly of what they're doing. But Shrapnel and Gunzilla, right? Gunzilla just dropped like their newest cinematic release. It's like today, I think this morning, and it's like it's on IGN. Dude. I mean, it's fucking amazing, right? So it's not gameplay, it's not anything like that, but it's really cool. Obviously, they did it, but yeah, no, I mean, if you know anybody that who's into writing or story crafting or anything like that, please shoot me a DM. We're happy to have a conversation with them.
I definitely think that sounds pretty cool. I'd like to see the story of Sandy Britches and see what she's been up to. Because
Yeah.
I'm a Sandy Britches holder, so obviously I'm biased. But I think having the named ones having stories like that would be quite interesting. Or just even building out the world. Because I'm thinking of like with Play Dungeons and Dragons and all the books that came off the back of that build it out, that people start kind of then imitating and stuff. It definitely is a great way of getting maybe more people interested who wouldn't kind of first off gravitate towards the game. So no, great question, Golden.
Yeah, and our lore is super conducive to things like that, right? I'm not very like the most creative guy in the world, but like if you go read the lore like behind our factions and stuff, like there's, and it's funny how you see like different people like resonate with different factions, right? Like we have one that's called like the Holy Corporation, right? And they're like the government, like they're kind of the posh like ones who have it all, and like I'm like, man, who would pick those? Like Metal Punk's all the way, dude. Holy Corp is losers, right? But then there's other people who are like, no, wait, dude, Holy Corp is so cool. And yeah, no, I mean, dude, I mean, for me, I support anybody who's willing to put a little bit of effort into us. We'll support them in any way we can. So it was a really cool idea, Golden, and good suggestion. So I appreciate that.
I hope Braswell heard it too. That's what I've been focusing on. Like that, like I'm also a game developer, like a solo developer, and so that's what I've been focused on the last couple of weeks is just writing out lore.
No, yeah, it's really cool. I say probably every week now. I'm a sucker for some lore. Can really hook me in. One thing I wanted to go back to because I've got my little notepad here is you saying that about the borrowing from the baronies, which is a bit of a tongue twister. That the people wouldn't all need wallets. How's that working to borrow someone's asset without a wallet, or is it more handled in a Web2 kind of dashboard style?
Yeah, I mean, we'll exist in a web like 2.5 world, right? I don't think the gaming world is ready for anything to be like completely Web3. So we're still working out like kinks and details of those things, and so like full transparency, right? Like we're in phase 1 of our alpha testing right now. You're not going to see any like wallet and blockchain integrations till like phase 3 of our testing. But we're exploring like a ton of different solutions. We know, in practicality what we want to do. It's just a matter of like ironing those things out. When it comes to any sort of wallet and like blockchain integration, right, you have to get it right, because there's a million different websites with huge publication reach that want to dismiss everything that you're doing, right? So we're definitely going to take our time with those things, right? But yeah, I mean, our goal is that, like, you don't, no matter who you are, what you're interested in financially, and what your hobbies are or what you like to research, like, you can play MetalCore and have like the full and complete gameplay experience, right? Whether that's wallet or not, right? So I think asking people to sign transactions to loan things out is even a little bit of a friction point and a speed bump in adoption. So we want to eliminate as many of those as we can.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And with Web 2.5, I've switched to Diet Crypto, or Diet Crypto is the one, or Diet Web3 Gaming.
There we go.
Because I think 2.5 people are thinking halfway in the middle, but I don't think that, and that you're trying to get to Web3, but for some games, being fully on chain just doesn't make sense. Like, it's not as if every shot from your mech could be on chain. There's going to be a lot of it which is handled kind of game server side. Maybe you'll have the wins and the losses of the game go on chain, kind of as the furthest you'd go with interacting with the blockchain while you're actually playing, because it just adds so many limitations onto the gameplay if you want to be fully on chain. And I don't think currently, from what we've seen, the fully on chain ones are going to be active enough to grab the kind of mainstream audience. It's a lot closer to kind of a sim game that you can do with the transactions, and some of them are quite good. I know there's a few fully on-chain games that I play that I like, but I like them at different points. So if I was sitting down to go and blow things up, and every time I shot I had to sign a transaction for my NFT of a bullet, that's not going to get me anywhere, sort of thing.
Yeah, a couple of things on that point, right? So if you're making a game that's like going to do that, you're going to have to like incorporate some sort of like, roll-ups need to be better, right? So ZK roll-ups need to be better, because that's the only way to like realistically do that. Hopefully with Matic, like launching like ZK Sync, like you're starting to find answers to some of those things. But then you're also thinking like, I'm not the only thing that's on Matic, right? Matic's through point has to also support Starbucks and our game and whatever else game is on chain. If you start to go down that route, and that gets to be a slippery slope like really, really quickly. But also, if you're going to offer people like in-game earning potential, it needs to be higher than the cost of signing those transactions at the beginning and the end of your play session. And as far as I'm concerned, like, I don't think any game has gotten the economic models correct enough to do that, especially when markets start to turn down. When the market's hot, yeah, everybody's making money, but like, people are going to want to play your game, whether it's a bull or a bear market, right? So if the economy at its best and at its worst, you need to offer a fun gameplay experience. So, can people's economic models really sustain those things and justify those things? I don't know. I'm not a dev. I'm not that smart. I don't have the answer to those things.
And also, do you even want to, like, some people are putting Web3 and crypto and blockchain into aspects of the game where there's no point. Like, you started off your kind of description saying solving a problem that gamers don't know they had or might not even be a problem for them. And I think some devs, in their eagerness of enjoying Web3, and there's nothing wrong with that, are definitely trying to solve problems that aren't there and are actually making more problems.
100%. And, when you're in the world of, startups, which, let's call everybody that's building in Web3 right now is essentially a startup. I mean, there's established companies coming in, but a lot of us that are, getting ready to launch these things are new companies. What's like rule number one is like, find a problem and then solve it. Don't solve a problem and then look for the problem, right? And I think a lot of people have done that in Web3 so far. And it's not a bad thing, like you said. It's just excitement over like the technology that we're all around, that we all love.
No, and then I've got one last question, but I'll throw it out just as a reminder. It's a free stage to come up if you do have any questions for Jerry for MetalCore. So it's going to be difficult remembering to call your name that isn't your name under there, but I managed.
It's worse when it's in person and people go like, "Hey, what's up, Fresco?" And I'm like, "Dude, I'm 30, man. Like, just call me Jerry." Like, online it's fine. In person, I'm always like, nah, just call me by my name.
Yeah. Well, I'm Gaspod's not actually my name, even though it is a name. So,
Yeah.
I am
More
also
comfortable than I
an
am,
older
so.
gentleman now, unfortunately. But we'll go to Chinkiran before I ask my last question, and then after that we'll switch over to my angry Yakuza girlfriend. But Chinkiran,
I was just gonna see if we're gonna see MetalCore ETH Denver or not.
Oh, I will be there. We will not have a presence there, but I will be there.
I'm big sad, but we'll have to meet up still.
Yeah, for sure, man. Let's go. I'll have to get you. I'll grab you some drinks.
you're coming out without your metalcore stuff. You're dead to Chinkiran. He's just blank you as you walk past. Like,
I know.
if you were
Look, I
there
got
in
my
official
stickers, I'm happy.
capacity.
I thought he'd be like, "Hey, cool. At least I get to meet you." And he said, "Like, oh, that sucks. That's
Yeah.
disappointing."
That actually segues really nicely, Jinky, because that was actually my final question was, how have you guys found live events? And because I know you did a tournament live as well, wasn't it? How have you been finding doing that?
Yeah. So we did TwitchCon and PAX West, and we did like NFT NYC. If you're somebody who's ever thinking about going to an event, don't go to NFT NYC. It's kind of a waste of money. But for PAX West and TwitchCon, it was awesome. So actually, I didn't go to either. I think PAX West was before my time, and then TwitchCon I just couldn't go. But yeah, it was interesting, man, because like the gamers don't hate Web3 in the way that we've all been told and the way we all believe, right? The organizations themselves were a little iffy with us kind of going like, hey, we're an NFT game or anything like that. They were like, hey, like kind of don't do that, you know what I mean? But on the down low, if people ask, you can do it, but don't advertise it, right? And dude, like we brought a good build, we brought a good game, we brought a fun game, we brought some cool partners out, some cool art, and made it a cool experience for people to come and like play the game. And like people were lining up and like waiting for over an hour to play the game, right? So, and people signed up for early access codes. People signed up to our content creator program. People who like MetalCore's community is really unique, right? Because a lot of our community came from those two events and are not like Web3 people like the rest of us are, right? So, but they have taken to Web3 and they see the benefits of Web3 now. So, kind of our long-standing takeaway was that like we're all onto something. We just need to deliver the experiences to justify these big shakeups, right? These big changes to what people have believed and have partaken in for the last 10. I've been a gamer for 25 years, so for 25 years I didn't use wallets, I didn't own my assets or anything like that, and I was totally fine with it. So that's kind of the thing I always like to leave people with about like the experience that the team had at both of those events was that like people were excited, people loved what we had to say, people have continued to love what we've had to say. The thing is you just have to deliver the title behind it. And if you're a game player, if you're somebody who wants to just like have fun and spend a couple hours playing the game, what do you want? You want an immersive experience. You want something that's going to be worth your time. And right now the games aren't there. We've seen it ourselves that if the gameplay's there, the people are going to be there and they're going to support, whatever tech stack you use behind that game. So my challenge is always just like, let's start building better games, right? And they're coming. Uldor is going to be awesome. Shrapnel is going to be great. MetalCore, I hope, is going to be great. Gunzilla is going to be great. Like the games are Meta Ops 2, Jinky. Sorry, don't let me leave those guys out. But like, that's just always the challenge. Is like, let's build the games, and then the people will come. Field of Dreams.
Yeah, 100%. And that sounds really interesting. And I hope that Jinkiran still meets up with you, even though you're not there on official business. But thanks for coming and talking to us about MetalCore. It's great to hear it. I'll have to jump back in again at some point, see how everything's going, see if I can do better than just flying around in my what did I call it? I think I called it my hovering taxi. It's kind of what I felt like.
That's pretty much what it is. Yeah.
But to be honest, the first person shooter bit that I was doing kind of when I got out was quite good as well. I think it's got a good mixture of the two. But no, it's been great hearing about MetalCore. We do have a last hand from Jinkiran before we switch over.
Yep, final question, I swear. Do you have any plans to open up for holders outside of Fridays anytime soon?
Yeah, so that's another great question, and it's tricky. And like, if you guys like a little bit inside baseball, right? Like, is the gameplay experience of MetalCore that's out right now like pretty good? Yeah, I'm proud of it, right? But would I want to play it, 3 days a week or 4 days a week? Like, it's just too limited right now. Um, our next update should be very, very, very substantial. And yeah, we're gonna look at opening days up. But the gameplay needs to support it. The people need to be having fun. Otherwise, you know, if we have them open for 5 days right now, are people gonna play on a Tuesday afternoon and have enough people in the servers to like have a good experience, or are they gonna walk away saying like, this game looks cool, but it kind of sucks because nobody's playing it, right? So once we get the game to a point where it's expansive enough to warrant, having additional days, we're gonna 100% have additional days, and our our work output's going to go way down because everybody on our team plays the game all day every Friday. So we
Yeah,
might
'cause
have to put a ban on people.
well, the thing is, I loved playing it when I got to play it, but the problem with it being on Fridays is I work a 9 to 5, and I just don't get time to really play it because I'm too busy on Fridays. So if you guys were to do it on maybe a Saturday, I'm just saying,
We have entertained that thought, and I will add you as a +1 vote to moving the day to Saturday.
love to hear it, love to see it. Gaspode, back to you. I'm sorry.
No, that's
Yeah,
fine.
that's
And
fine.
good
Can I make
question.
a quick suggestion?
Go Golden.
How about once a month for the entire weekend? There's a big game called Dark and Darker, and that's all like they're huge. And if anybody was in that NFT gamers group, they seen me when that game first released. Like, yo, they're at 2,000 users. Yo, they're at 5,000. Yo, they're at 10,000. They got up to 100,000, and they only release one weekend out of the months. It's the only extraction Dungeons and Dragon type game on the market, and they release one weekend a month every month so far to update the features and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea either. I'll definitely take that back as well. Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, I mean, for people like, I mean, I have a job too, right? My job is to work on MetalCore, so like, I'm actually like the one person on the team on Fridays that's like not playing. You guys probably like don't see me in the servers that often because I'm like, I still got to secure partnerships and secure distribution channels and stuff. Because kind of a little bit of like, again, a little bit of alpha, like as we go to market, like it'll have like the reach in total target audience of like our marketing campaign is gonna be several millions, multi-million amount of people all over the world. Yeah, no, that's definitely something that we can do, and I think as we go into phase 2 and the game kind of expands and there's a lot more to do. Yeah, that actually sounds like a great idea.
No, thanks for the suggestions, Jinker and Gordon. So we'll just do a quick refresh before we jump over to Sinjin to hear about My Angry Yakuza Girlfriend. Thanks everyone for joining us for episode 32. We've just heard from Play MetalCore, and we'll be hearing from Sinjin for My Angry Yakuza Girlfriend. If you like what you're hearing, make sure to follow the projects. I should have been pinning stuff, but I've been doing my ironing, so I got slightly distracted from all the pinning I should be doing. So along the top there will be stuff to do with the different games, and that is about it. Oh yeah, retweet it, like, and all the sort of Twittery stuff to get more people to be able to hear about these projects. But with that, we'll go over to Sinjin. Who are you, and what's your game?
I'm Korean, and I'm turning 48 this year, so I'm a fossil in the space. And I'm the lead game designer for My Angry Yakuza Girlfriend. And I've been playing video games honestly since like 1980. And I actually played Pong like in the actual like arcade unit on the actual arcade unit, and that was being phased out at that time. I've like played pretty much every single console, and I was in esports starting, if you can believe it, 1997 with Quake 2. I worked for Samsung like 1999, 2000, and we launched the World Cyber Games, which is the first esports global tournament. And I was in Korea with StarCraft Brood War, taking care of one pro team called Hexatron for a while. Um, and I was a Team Liquid executive advisor from like when they started off in early days, and then after they had gone acquired by Disney. My day job, though, was I was a Korean technology government negotiator, a technology transfer, and PricewaterhouseCoopers for um, business negotiation and strategy internationally. And I guess my main thing, though, in terms of career-wise, was that I was the regional director for Poker Stars in Asia. I actually legalized poker in Macau back in 2007 to 2010. I introduced the game of poker, if you can believe it, to the entire continent and of East Asia, as well as a lot of Southeast Asia. And then I went on to basically do a lot of game development in terms of loyalty systems and retention systems in the casino space as well. I had a fintech company in 2017, got bought by Alibaba. It was a Philippines-based company. We had an e-money banking license, and Alibaba it was Ant Financial actually was they wanted to IPO, so they luckily bought me out, and then I was working in microfinance for a bit. But when I was working in microfinance, we were making our own system in crypto. I got into crypto in May 2017, shortly after my exit. And we had done all this development, and finally we're ready to launch with these NGOs, but we can't because it's the middle of the pandemic, right? And so this is like, whatever, 2001, we're getting ready to go. And, these countries are still in lockdown. So we're looking for marketing channels, and we find Axie Infinity in about like May 2021. And we're like, this is great. This is like underserved markets, emerging markets. Let's work with them. And nobody wanted to talk with us because they were all interested in buying Axies. And so we're like, okay, let's just set up what do you call it? A scholarship. And then we can use our scholarship to, use it as a marketing channel. And so we set up a 300-person scholarship. I ended up doing the breeding for about a month and a half because my staff wanted to just buy like 1,000 Axies. And at that time, the price was like 450, 600 per Axie. I'm like, no way we're going to do that. Let's just try to figure it out. And we ended up buying, like, if you know anything about Axie Infinity, we ended up buying 45 pure beast plants and birds. And I ended up doing breeding for like a month and a half, literally nonstop, like 24 hours a day, breeding them out. And we ended up with a 300-person Axie team. And it was great because they were generating about 1,200 a month after that 50% fee, right? And they did that for about 2 months, and then it dropped to like 800, then like 400, then 200, and then we just gave it to them for free after that. Like basically, like you could just take all of it. But then we realized, or I realized, hey, this Axie model has some real innovation here. Like as a game designer, and also, having my background in online real money and social casinos, I thought this is pretty fantastic stuff. And deep diving so much into the Axie kind of world, I could see where they had made certain like design issues or errors with their economy. And so we decided that we're going to make our own studio, which was a huge step for me because I had done game development and stuff like that. But in the casino and the traditional card game space, like you might not know it, but there's a Chinese game called Fight the Landlord called Dodiju. In China and Japan, Korea and Japan, we played another game called Ghost Stop. And of course, in the West, you play poker, you play hold'em poker and stuff like that. But the game mechanics don't change for any of these games. What's different is how are the loyalty systems set up? How are the retention systems set up? So on and so forth. And so I looked at it and I had a pretty good idea of what to do. And so we started, and then we started the studio back in September 2001, and we did a lot of research and development actually. And we set up, spec'd out 3 games. And eventually we got to the point where like, okay, well, like if the economy is the kind of the main thing that we think that we've gone into a sustainable like kind of design here, then let's pick a game of like the 3 games we have done that we're going to be able to get done in a year. Because the one game that I really wanted to do was going to take like 2.5, 3 years. So, we decided on My Angry Yakuza Girlfriends, and it's a funny game. It's a turn-based shooter game. So I don't know if you know of any turn-based shooters, but you're actually a third-person shooter, and you are Miki, the granddaughter of the biggest Yakuza Oyabun boss in Japan, heir to the empire, and you are an angry girl, and you're in this 90s Tokyo bar and set out in the 90s Tokyo, and basically anything in your hand is a lethal weapon, and so you fight other Yakuza ladies for dominance in a turn-based game, and you throw, Perignon bottles at people, like luxury handbags that explode, black Amex cards that are like ninja stars. But we base the game mechanics on the game Worms. If you know that game, it's an old school game, super old school. It's basically a 2D map where you landscape and you're like a little worm or a little tank, and you blow each other up in turn based, right? So we knew that the game mechanic there was pretty accessible, but to turn it into a third-person shooter, that's where we did prototyping for about 2 months. So we did that from design specs were like finalized in April of 2002. May, June was prototyping, and then we had our first VS1 done in October. We have our next VS2 done for the end of this month, and then we have our closed gated alpha for the 20th of next month. I pray and I hope that's going to happen, because it's a lot of dev work. We're self-funded. We put in about 2 million already. We did get funding during the bull market, but I said I passed on it, and the reason why was because I wasn't sure about the token model, and I didn't want to have like just these splayed out tokens out there because it wasn't the way that I thought that the design was going to be sustainable. And we're pretty much diametrically opposite to what Jerry was saying about their development to go 2.5, right? We're not looking for mass market. And I want to say something about like 2.5 development and where they're headed. I think it's fantastic. I think it's prudent. I think it's a good step forward, and I think looking towards where the mass market is. I think for a game where it's an MMO, you have to do that. Our game is fundamentally like a traditional card game. Like imagine if you're playing poker because it's turn based, but instead of like cards, you're actually like throwing bombs at each other, right? And so the reason why I did that was because whatever kind of game designer you are, from whatever background you are, that's the kind of way you're going to look at solutions. Unfortunately, everything looks like a nail because that's kind of your background and your expertise, right? And I would say that from everything that I've heard in the space, most game designers don't have actually open economy experience. So what I hear a lot of the times is that look at World of Warcraft, or look at Diablo 3, or the Auction House, or look at what do they call it, EVE Online. But those are not truly open economies. And the only way a truly open economy occurs is when there's like kind of full liquidity between accounts. So when an account is not playing, well, that asset is not in play, right? But you saw with Axie Infinity, even if you're not playing with your Axies, you could still lend them out, right? Or if the account dies, then you sell all your assets anyways, right? So there's an inherent like oversupply problem that's in it. And, I think that we found a solution that works. So our only objective is like totally Web3 all the way. Like we've split the game so that the launcher, connects with your MetaMask, and we're on ETH. And all your assets are there. It's very clear how to manage them, how to manage your guild, and so on and so forth. And then each NFT can generate your own game account. And then you take the game account and then you would go into the game. Or you could give the game account to somebody else to play for you, like within whatever hours that they want to. Now, how many steps is that? It's a motherfucking lot of steps, man. I mean, like, if this is like a Web2 gamer, there's no way they're going to do it. I remember when I first started playing Axie, and so I'm like, I almost broke my laptop because I couldn't figure out how to get back to the screen again. Like there was a screen where like There was a screen where like there was the account creation thing where you put the password in for, and I couldn't find it because it was like, I think at one point Axie Infinity had its kind of most complicated thing was like 17 steps for like the actual setup of the actual game. But I think the difference is that I did go through that, and the economy was compelling. Now, of course, a lot of criticism is really like, if the game is no good, then it's just not going to work out. And I would say that's absolutely true, right? Games, by definition, need to be good, but games are very difficult to get to good, really. To make a hit game, like think about how many enduring games there are. If there's like 10,000 new games released on like Steam, right? It's not that it's not possible, and I think you find a lot more um, possibility when you're more of a niche game. So, it's difficult. But like a game like poker, and my experience for like online poker and real money poker and stuff like that, um, the game can be a grind, right? But there's this kind of aspirational aspect of it. But the games that are like poker, it's very interesting because the way that they're designed, actually, like, why is a game like Texas Hold'em All In, like No Limit, a much better game than Texas Hold'em that's a limit play, right? Meaning that the bets are all the same bets, or like pot limit. Or why is it a better game than five card stud poker that it never reached the same heights as like Texas Hold'em, and it's because there's a couple of things, but one major thing is the aspect of all in is like it levels the playing field. So like let's say you're playing against another pro, right? If you want to fuck the pro up, the easiest thing to do is like when you first start playing, you just go all in on like pre-flop, or when the flop comes, no matter what happens, you pop whatever the pot is, like 4x, 5x, and they're gonna try to figure you out. And you actually have a fighting chance because you really don't know what's going on when you're playing poker and you don't really know how to play. Like I've seen some first time players and they had like a flush and they're like, oh, they mucked their hands and they're like, I lost. And I'm like, no, 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 no. Let me see, like, because I like see it like as they're mucking, they don't even muck properly, and I'm like, yo, man, you had a flush, and they're like, oh, I won. I go, no, you didn't win because your cards touched the pile of cards, so like whatever, right? But what I'm just saying is that there are certain games where skill is determined per game, like chess. So if you're slightly better in chess, or you're slightly better in Fortnite, but you're definitely in that little higher range, you're like a lot more twitchy, or like maybe Apex Legend or something like that, right? Or you just can't lose. Like you rarely, rarely, rarely ever lose, right? But certain games like poker, right? You see the skill over a period of time, right? You don't see the skill per game. Like you could lose like 10 hands in a row in poker, but over a period of 1,000 hands, you win 90% of those hands, right? So, those kind of things for our kind of game design make it so that, we've looked at like a super hyper competitive type of game. And the thing with the hyper competitive types of games are that once that kind of loop works and the hyper competitive loop works, it naturally kind of grows. But the biggest problem that we've had, and we're solving a kind of Web 2 problem, is that user acquisition for hyper competitive games like this, card games or turn based games or whatever like that, the acquisition cost is humongous. So I'll give you an example: is online real money poker. The cost per acquisition directly to someone, like this is like 15 years ago, would have been $75 CPA, right? But near when we were at the height of poker and everyone's kind of like, we had like 200 poker rooms and everyone's fighting for poker players, the acquisition per player is $650, right? But the lifetime value for some of these players far exceed that. So like a lot of people in game development right now, and they're looking at it and they're saying that, okay, well, these acquisition costs are nuts, or this is like, we need to get like whatever 5 million, players to acquire so that we can, get the 2 to 3% whales and stuff like that, which is super true for like mobile games or even, like casino casual games and stuff like that. But the revenue model for the games that I'm aware of that I've, professionally designed for, you know, if we have like 1,000 concurrent players, right? So 1,000 concurrent players, which would probably be in like these types of games having let's say just as few as like 18,000 daily actives, right? Um, that would generate like with the typical like average like revenue per user, it would generate about like $30,000 a day, right, with 1,000 users. But the trick is that you need to have a concurrent user base to do it. So what I feel is like our game design actually lends itself to a Web3 model, but also that acquiring these kind of players in the Web2 space, it's impossible now. You never hear about traditional card games as like cash cows, like WSOP Online or these other games, because the war for establishing the player base happened back literally like 10, 15 years ago, right? Because these were such major cash cows. So if you look at like market share of the top mobile games like in China or Asia or even in America, you know, go back like 12, 13, 14 years ago, you'll see that this like the advent of like the social casinos or online poker and so on and so forth, Zynga poker, whatever like that, and how much they were making at that time. But when they got established, right, there was no way to kind of get back into it because of user acquisition costs where they're making so much revenue. Now it doesn't matter because they can see how much revenue they make and devote X percentage to user acquisition, right? But in our case with Web3, creating the community first and creating a hardcore group of players first who are like uber competitive, for us that's a great way to start, and you wouldn't be able to start otherwise. And so another thing that like some people say to me is that why don't you just do poker? And I was like, poker is pretty like solved in terms of an industry and stuff like that. And it's hard to pull off because again the user acquisition costs are so high, right? So whether you're Web3 or not, I don't think that an NFT is going to be enough like 10x value for you to acquire players for that way. But something like My Angry Yakuza Girlfriend, which is out there, which is crazy, which is like a very kind of Web3 ethos kind of game. I think we have a chance to get the niche players. And, I think a lot of other game developers and game designers don't have experience in introducing an entire game genre from zero. Like when I was in Macau and in China, like they thought that like poker with the two cards was like Baccarat or like 21. Like they had no idea about Texas Hold'em whatsoever, right? And so I've seen that progress through it. I'm not kind of concerned about starting a new genre from scratch or something like this. Now, I'm going to say that we are self-funded, and because of that, I've gotten to do whatever I want to do, and I'm lucky enough to have had that exit. But when I talk to other industry people or VCs and stuff like that don't have a background in like real money, poker or like social casinos or even real casinos, right? Um, they have no idea what I'm talking about, right? Because for them, it's all mass market, what's your user acquisition channels, what's your go to market strategy and stuff like that. But I think what's great about the model that we have and what actually is kind of like, actually was really this proof of concept is that, you could have, if you can solve the economy problem, right, and make it a competitive game, then I think that the go-to-market strategy and also the product market fit is definitely there because the community is so invested because they hold the NFT, right, as your game asset, right? And so, people forget that Axie Infinity had 2 million daily active users at its peak, right? And where did they come from? Where was their go-to-market strategy? What was their product market fit? Obviously, they failed a little bit on the latter part. I mean, it's tough. I mean, it is really tough. I mean, uh, I mean, I did my, I did my undergraduate in like political theory. I did my master's in like Korea for my MBA, and obviously I studied like economic development there. I also went to Harvard Kennedy School for monetary policy and like public policy, right? I mean, I have like so much economic background and I have a background in casino games and real money and poker, and it wasn't easy, right? This is not something that's really easy at all. Even if you're to make Web3 poker, like I don't know if the game itself lends itself enough that it could handle like a fully open economy. So it's a challenge, but it's one that I think if I can make a sustainable game with MAYG with 1,000 concurrent players, then I think the rest is kind of like it's going to happen, right? Because there's two ways to look at Axie Infinity. You can look at it as like this kind of like anomaly that kind of started things, but has no relevance because it just happened and it's never going to happen again. Or you could look at it that it did have some fundamental flaws, and we could really dive into it. I could like talk for like 3 days on how the design was like kind of flawed and so on and so forth. But that it is solvable, and I think that this genre or the approach that we're taking doesn't fit for a lot of games, but for my background and for our studio, it definitely does. Sorry for the long monologue.
It's all right. When you're saying 3 days, I thought, oh, he doesn't mean now, does he? But no, it's you've hit so many points along the way that I'm glad I've got a notebook. So I will kind of come down to them. I'll see your hand there, Golden. So I'll go there in 2 seconds. Just on the poker side of things, it must be about 6 years ago, 7 years ago. I was on PokerStars grinding 3 fast fold tables at a time. And I definitely preferred, obviously No Limit was definitely a lot better for that sort of thing. And I think there was always the saying on the forums where people were complaining that they had lost a 10%, well, they had 90% all in and they lost. And without that RNG, without that potential, like you say, you just wouldn't have people playing. And that's always a comparison between poker and chess, that chess, the vast majority of the times, unless something wild happens, the better player is just going to stomp you. And it's that RNG, the fact that you could suddenly win within poker and just be an absolute donkey, is what keeps fresh money coming in. Because otherwise, people just wouldn't come into play, and then the sharks wouldn't get any money because there's no fish to eat, essentially. And then one point I want to say before I shuffle over to Golden is I like the idea of targeting a niche rather than onboarding that masses, because that is very different to a lot of games in the space. And I think I've posted something about it a while ago when I was considering it. I think if you're doing it intentionally and you budget knowing that you're not going to be onboarding the masses, it could definitely be very sustainable, and it's definitely less of a hitting for a kind of a home run than some of the games which need to fully onboard the masses to be able to kind of survive. But Golden, we'll go to your question first before I jump into my notepad.
Okay, my question is just in terms of gameplay, because you mentioned Worms, and I'm old too, so I played Worms as well. My big question is the game closer to Worms or Worms 3D, which is the newest iteration of it that came out for PlayStation 4, or is it more like an XCOM type of game, or like a Summoner's War type game?
Okay, it's more closer to like X3 Worms 3D. Not the really latest one, but I think it was like 3D Mayhem. The problem is that okay, so Worms, when they did it in a 3D form, what they did was that they made the map like lengthwise, but mostly vertical, right, from like different heights, right? So we did play it. The problem is that you need a mini map there, and then also the targeting and so on and so forth as a 3D game. It wasn't a hit. It didn't translate very well. So instead of making our map more like kind of vertically kind of set up where like you're starting on different like elevations of the map, you're starting in this massive Tokyo nightclub, and in this massive Tokyo nightclub, you basically have like, as if you're a third person shooter, a full view, right? So in the case where you're in like Worms Mayhem, where 3D, where you can, and let me give you the difference, okay? So for the crowd thing, like XCOM is like, you have X amount of space you're gonna go to, your turn's done, and then you're gonna fight again, right? So for us, it's like during your time period, there's a clock, 10 seconds, you can move wherever you want within a certain range, within that 10-second range, right? And then when you hit fire, it's going to turn you into the aiming mode. So imagine in Fortnite when you press the sniper mode or like the aiming mode, right? So you're not firing from the hip anymore. You're firing through the eyesight. And then because it is, how do I say, most of the weapons are area based attacks, like area effect attacks, right? AoE. attacks because there are explosions, stuff like this. Then you get to lob your champagne bottle or your exploding handbag or your Rimowa suitcase at the people, and it explodes. And the other part of it is that we took from Worms is that everything's destructible. So the entire map is destructible. So like in Fortnite, over a period of time. So like the way the game formatted is you start with like against 2 other players and it's a free for all. And the next higher limit rounds are like 3-player, 4-player, 5-player. But in Fortnite, which was originally the innovation was from PUBG, so let's just get that straight, is where the map shrinks over a period of time. So the storm comes and then you kind of get into the middle there, right? So in our game, for it to end, because we want to have multiple rounds, so we want players to play, 1 round every 10 minutes, is that the entire club gets destroyed eventually as you fight, right? And so like there's no more kind of hide and seek in the club anymore, because once you get a full beat on somebody with like a grenade or something like that guy's dead because it's turn-based. You can't run away. So there's no defense. It's more like this kind of turn-based strategic positioning, hiding go seek game until you basically get in a position where you're gonna have to make a sacrifice and try to kill this person, right? And expose yourself, right? But the thing is, what I love about our game design is that it's all about collusion. Okay, so let's say that Gaspode, Jerry, and you, Mr. Glowmaster, there we go, all in gaming, right? So you guys are playing together, okay, and then you guys say, Gaspode is like, he's such a dick. We just don't like his accent. And then you can literally converse in game and just blow him up first, right? Or conversely, let's say that Jerry, who's like mature now because he's 30, decides, you know what, I'm so mature, I don't have time for this. I'm going to grind this out and just put a bot in. And you're like, Jerry, like, tell us something or whatever. And then it comes out as jumble. And then, Jerry, that fucker, he's using a bot. So you guys can come and destroy him first, right? So like games where there's money involved, inherently, there's going to be fraudulent behavior, right? And this is what I'm saying about like Axie Infinity and stuff like this is like, it's not that they were wrong, right? But whenever you add an open economy, like the incentive for players to do bad things is like through the roof. If you were to look at like something that's real money related, but had like low barriers to access, right? The normative behavior would be fraudulent, right? They would try to exploit and destroy the system. And any system, like I don't care what monetary system you have, if you have one type of exploitive player group and they're the majority of it, they'll destroy the game. And the only way to protect the game, if you haven't designed for it in the first place, is basically to make the game less fun. Skill sets are like a lot less powerful, less rewards, less items that can do certain damage, less unfair advantages, and then it's a boring game. So it's a way to say that for a true like game that has an open economy, that has prizes that can be won through a series of tournaments or events, not all games are going to be able to actually have that direct model, right? And so like just to answer your point, basically, yeah, like we've done the game so that it's a third-person shooter. You have the third-person shooter mechanics, but there's a time limit on it, and there's no defense. And one other reason why we decided to do that, rather than like go with some of the other games we had decided was that if you have turn-based, it's less twitchy, right? But doing the third-person mechanic shooters is really what normally now is considered the norm. So AWSD, mouse on the right hand, so on and so forth, right? And we wanted the game to be somewhat hardcore in that respect, but still have accessibility. And as far as I know, other than Worms 3D, Mayhem, we're one of the only turn-based third-person shooters. And when I mean third-person shooters, first person is you just see your hands. The third person is like Fortnite, where you see the guy running around and you kind of have that kind of view, right? And then you have your targeting reticle like in the middle, right? So it's structured like that.
So it's a turn-based tactical third-person shooter. I like it. My suggestion is there's a guy sitting next to me on my profile. His name's Jake Karen, centerman key. because that's right up his alley.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's the other thing too. We're totally fucking gated, right? Like, I mean, like if you don't hold the NFT, right, you're not gonna play the game, right? But don't worry, I'm sure like everyone who's here, we can arrange something. Now my marketing staff is like, oh no, don't give out like whitelists like that. But anyways, obviously the Gaspode and to Jean Karen and the other guests here, I'm sure we can arrange something. But yeah, it's fully gated. We don't want Web2 gamers. I don't want to waste my time and effort on you guys, right? I want to have Web3 gamers who corely understand what the game is about and then can basically go and say, MAYG is like the best like Web3 competitive game. And if you're like a sissy, this is not the game for you. But if you're hardcore, this is the game you should get into, right? And that's what we're kind of going for. Now, of course, the VC conversations have gone horribly terrible. so I continue to fund the entire operation out of my own pocket. And that's why we don't have a sexy trailer, because spend 1 month of dev time on a sexy trailer that has nothing to do with the game, but which would be great for lore and image and VC money, or build the game out faster. And I opt to build out the game faster. That could have been a mistake, but that's where we're going.
And is this playable at the moment? Sorry, Gaspo. That's my last question.
But we have a VS1 that was done in October, so it's just a window executable. We're going to have a VS2 done at the end of this month, so it's just a few days away for content creators to actually play against each other. So the VS2 definitely is playable, the vertical slice 2, but we'll have the actual alpha out next month by the 20th. So if you hold a MAYG NFT, you will be actually able to play the game. So the blockchain aspect hasn't been turned on, but we could turn it on in about 2.5, 3 months, and then we have our fully functioning game at that time. It's not going to be pretty. It's still going to require like 3 or 4 months of polish on top of it, but we've decided to kind of switch that way to, how do I say, do an iterative type of development to beta, rather than doing like alpha, get feedback, and then just do it. And the reason for that is because this is the way that we get our market fit, and our go to market with our community, right? And we're hoping that this works out. And it's what's happened is, though, that certain things that we would have rather wanted to do first and push the cosmetics to the end, we put some of the cosmetics first. So like if you go and see a demo of our game, it's like online. You can go check our Discord out, and you'll see the October VS1. Like the models don't look great, right? But if you could see the size of the level, it's great. And the reason why is because like in certain games like that are like like PVE, right? Like you can't go back really to go and upgrade the graphics. You're better off just upgrading it to AAA right away, right? We're not a AAA game. I just want to make that very clear, right? But in an arena game where you're playing the same level every single game, right, with the same like character NFT, right? Then we can upgrade, the poly count, triangle, whatever, whenever we want to. Like we can literally switch it out. We can upgrade the graphics. So we might not look like a AAA game graphic wise now, but like I'm from like the pro gaming like era of like StarCraft, and online poker. Like I put my settings when I play Dota 2 to like minimal settings, right? If my system is like acting up or whatever.
Who's your
Right?
Who's your main?
I'm sorry.
Who's your Dota main?
Who's my Dota main right now? Primal Beast, baby. Oh my
There
god,
we
I
go.
fucking cheat so bad. I'm like the cheats. I'm an old dude. I'm not twitchy, right? So I play Turbo, and I buy like boots, and I buy mangoes, and I try to get middle position, and then I just gank everyone for the first like 10 minutes. I'm usually like 5-0 in the first like 10 minutes of ganking everyone, and then everyone's all pissed off because if it's a squishy hero setup, then whatever. That's my main, and my second main, since I played. Oh, so like I've been playing since like Frozen Throne, obviously. I was Clan TDA, the original like whatever Dota All Stars clan, and there used to be a site Dota All Stars .com, which was done by Pendragon Steve, who was the lead developer for LOL, and I bought them their first community server because like they were little kids and they're like, we need a server, and I sent them like $800 or $1,000, and then they bought a used server for the community site. But like yeah, Ginsu and all those other guys, like I was right there. So my favorite character though is 100% Luna, right? But they nerfed her for so many years, and so like I literally didn't play for like a couple of years or whatever. But yeah, Primal Beast. How about yourself, Jerry? You play? You must play.
Yeah. Right now it's Witch Doctor,
Witch Doctor,
and
yeah. I ban Witch Doctor before I play.
and I play Earthshaker a lot right now.
Oh yeah, Earthshaker is like the nuts, right?
We'd
I
be a
mean,
match made in heaven, dude. You and I just fissure, and then you just go stomp on everybody.
yeah, that'd be good. And
Can't relate.
yeah,
I'm
and
a League
the
of
stomp
Legends
goes
player.
through all that stuff. Yeah. Yeah. I always find like if I've lane with someone who actually knows what they're doing, but like playing pubs is like the worst. But then when you get older, you can't organize these games. But I remember, and Jerry, like as competitive, like if you play Dota, you're competitive, right? And that's the kind of players we're looking for. But I used to literally go on business trips, and when I was a director of PokerStars, I go like 90 flights a year, like an insane amount, and I actually forced my marketing staff to learn how to play Dota. And I forced the team poker player pros to learn Dota, or I wouldn't give them sponsorship. So I feel like if you want my time, play Dota because I don't have any time to relax, and this is the only fun I get. I'm not going to play these pub games, going to get stomped on. So I'm going to teach you guys, and they're all poker players, and so they learn pretty quick. So yeah. Anyways, yeah, those are the players we're
When
going for.
when you're talking hardcore, my game's currently Pokemon Unite, so definitely isn't quite the same level. It's a
Yeah,
good game though.
you're not
I would definitely
necessarily
tell
a
people to
career
play
mode.
it. I do enjoy it. I like that. Um, I like the confidence and aggression, but in a good way, of being almost entirely tangent to the majority of what games are after. Like Web 2 people, get rid of you, don't care, sort of
Yeah,
thing, knowing exactly who you're going for. I
Dude,
like
and
that.
that's
It'll be
awesome.
interesting to see how it plays out. Mm.
It's awesome because like if you know where like if you know your product market fit, which a lot of games don't, like
yeah,
I'm sure Sinjin would agree with me on that. Like deep down they don't know
yeah.
where their like product market
That's
fit is,
very
and
true.
yeah, and that's why they're struggling, and that's why you're gonna see. I mean, I know it already happened with one. I don't want to name their names, but they just basically announced like a huge pivot a couple weeks ago. And if you know where it is, you can reverse engineer everything, right? You can think, you can solve, you can work your way
Yeah,
backwards from there, but you need to know what it is, right? And so, at first, when he said that he wasn't really interested in like bringing on like Web 2 people, I was like, oh, that's bold. But then as he's like discussing it, I get it, and I see the path to like viability, right? But you have to know those things, and
yeah,
obviously you do, and that's good to know, and that's really great to hear. But yeah, I mean, like, there's a lot of people who like a lot of like people are building games out there right now who will say the same thing, but like don't see the path to get that. They just think like, oh, everybody's gonna make a wallet eventually. They're like, how many times do we hear people say like, people are gonna like have to accept this technology? And it's like, fuck no, they don't. Like they get to
yeah.
decide that.
No, no, no. Yeah, I totally agree with that. The thing about it is like having a wallet and having ownership of your assets is not, it might be a 1x like innovation, but it's not a 10xer, right? I have spent and spanked my boys maybe 4 or 5 times. I'm Korean, I'm allowed to spank my boys and they're still young. They're getting old now. I don't spank them now. But like when they like mistakenly buy items. They mistakenly bought items on Fortnite. I'm like, oh yeah, you used daddy's credit card mistakenly and you were not supposed to save it. But I don't have any fear that the skins that they have aren't their skins, right? And even if they can't sell them, it's okay because the entertainment value that they get from playing with their friends and doing an emote and being part of that is so huge, right? And so that works for Fortnite. Um, but like, you know, for a lot of other games, if you're not like a super fucking hit game, like, are people really gonna buy your cosmetics? Or if you don't have that lore, I mean, I went through the MetaCore site and I love it because the lore's there and it's you guys already have experience with, your Mech War your game, and then also, I believe your lead was the lead for MechWarrior 2, right? So like you guys know the genre so much, but what happens with a lot of designers is they get assigned to build this game out, right? But it's got to be specialer than Fortnite, specialer than Apex Legends, specialer than Overwatch, right? The problem though is that then are you in the end the poor man's version or the poor person's version? I don't mean to say it in any discriminatory socioeconomic way, but like, are you the poor man's version of that game, right? And if you are, you're the shit out of fucking luck, man, right? Because people might say, "Oh, it's new content," but it's almost like it's new content, like it's a downloadable content in some sense, and then it's done, right? Because how many people would love to have a Dota 2 or LOL game? Fuck, man, many.
Yeah. There was a lot that
Exactly.
came and failed, like Heroes of
Yeah,
New Earth, yeah, Heroes of the Storm,
yeah. Heroes of the Storm is especially disappointing because it's Blizzard, right? So
I
New
know.
Earth was a complete ripoff in the Ice Frog and that whole debacle there, but he basically helped them, right? But he turned Luna into an Ant Queen, and I could not play Heroes of New Earth because now my beloved Luna was an Ant Queen. So I absolutely refused to play that game, you know. And that's a fucking true story, man. All right, and but Heroes of the Storm, oh my fucking god! This is Blizzard, man. They have all the data, and they couldn't. And I tried to play it. I'm a hardcore like you.
And
You
you
were
know
the
what, man?
Overwatch tester, yeah. But I was like doing
Yeah.
for like StarCraft 2 testing. WoW, I was like a beta tester, and my friends actually deleted it from my server, my computer, because like, Sinjin, if you start playing this, we know we're gonna lose you forever, and you're gonna lose your professional
Yeah.
career. So they're like
Dude, and people
deleted
were
it.
mad about it, like the
Yeah,
pivot from like RTS to like MMORPG. Like people
yeah,
were not happy about it at the time. But yeah, dude, I mean, like Heroes of the Storm was like mad disappointing because like it had everything going for it.
all the
It was
lore, all
yeah,
the
yeah.
IP,
The characters that you all
the
want to play, it's
mechanics.
innovative. It
Yeah.
was unique. And then I don't know, Blizzard sucked at it, And like they sucked at it when they were hitting on everything, dude. Like Diablo 3 was doing okay. Hearthstone was a major, major hit, right? So,
Yep.
and like Hearthstone, really, you can look at like, you know, was obviously it's a card game, right? But
Yep.
like what spawned from like that auto battler kind of like, casual experience, like Teamfight Tactics, like Dota Underlords, like you can really look back at
Yep.
Hearthstone as being a moment that made, that genre viable.
That's right.
But and so as they're getting all these hits, dude, they just flopped with like the game I was most excited for.
No, same. I even played the Heroes of the Storm because I wanted the Diva skin, the Korean Diva skin. So that was the only reason I downloaded it. And I did try to play it a little bit. And I think one problem is that exactly what you're saying. What was the real target market? Was it really Dota? Right? But then it was not inspired. Like even when Pendragon was the lead developer for LOL, he got so much shit from the Dota community because they felt they was so betrayed to do this LOL kind of baby, Dota ripoff game. But he was like, there's an interview with him, and he says, like, I didn't want to do a Dota ripoff. I wanted to make a game that was more accessible and some innovative in some ways. And in the end, very much so that LOL, like as a game, has far more reach than Dota has. Right. I
Yeah.
don't know what the figures are, but it's phenomenally like maybe double or triple or whatever Dota. Right. But I think Blizzard, went around to say we're gonna make this kind of innovative, MOBA clone, which we think we understand what's going on here. But I don't think they really did. I mean, and the fact that they launched with 3 maps initially made me feel they didn't understand that because they need to launch with 1 map and do it properly, find out, get that product market fit, and then kind of move on from it. And they just kind of assumed that it was going to work out, right? And so that's like the whole thing about it is like you can be you can have the best background in the world, right? But number one is that if you lose sight of, who your real target market is, right, or audience is, and you're not inspired, the game can't work. It just can't. And that's why you have producers, right? You have these senior producers and on our team. Okay, so our team is senior producer Danny Pisano, ex head corporate, not ex head. He is the senior corporate producer for EA. Okay, and he was the ex head of Bandai Namco USA Studios, right in the US, and the studio head and art director. He's doing double roles because we're a startup. Ukash, Sega, PS2. He was a one of the pioneering 3D game level designers and environmental art, right? But Danny's job, like there are like game producers who are in like the small studios and they're leading the kind of charge. But then the guys in the corporate EA is hardcore, right? These are the guys who come in and they're like Mr. Fox from like Pulp Fiction, where like they have to go in and they gotta fix shit because everything's gone derailed and it's like a $90 million budget and there's no hope in sight that this game's gonna get done, right? And in that particular case, when it's happening, you wouldn't think this would happen, but because the vision of the game that was like there, they've executed to what they think they wanted to execute it to, and the game's not fun, right? And you're like, holy fuck! Like we have all these mechanics that we've prototyped, and it looks great, and it's fun, and you put it all together, and it's not there because ultimately, I mean, why I'm bullish about Web3 games is like I would never invest in a Web2 game studio. And I would have never had the presumption to think that me, as and purely an economic game designer, would have any chance of launching a game that would be successful. You know, like that is like God tier, like talent kind of thing like that. But because it's Web3, and for me, Web3 is like 50% economy and 50% game, right? And then I can have a chance to kind of, iterate over a period of time. That's why I felt like, oh, I got the balls enough to try to attempt this, right? And for me, it's like very deliberate. Like I'm very aggressive, aggro aggressive, and I basically like full on. Like I had a $50 million valuation for the company, and we had 4 million on the table back in 2021 November. We were early. Like Peg actually had just launched a little bit before then, and I didn't take the money. I left the money on the table because I wasn't sure whether or not what was on the table and how people wanted to invest tokens and what kind of tokens they wanted was going to work, right? Um, so like I was very committed to the fact that if I'm going to do this game, right? Like this is a once in a lifetime opportunity, but also dream for me to really engage in this way. And of course, I've dumbed down the game so that it's not like this massive game. And I had made this other design, this other game, which was massive, and I kind of sissied out, and I guess everyone convinced me to sissy out because they're like, that's 2 years of life commitment or 3 years to find out what the final result was going to be. Let's try to do it in 1 year. So the other different thing is for our game studio is that we have 3 games that are lined up that are spec'd out. MAYG is the first one, but what do you call it? The game economic engine will be the same for all of them, right? And I think the difference, like if I could say one more thing on it, would be, people talk about monetization and they talk about tokenomics, but for our game we talk about like revenue model, and the revenue model is basically like entry fees, right? So players play and they risk an entry fee, but because players are playing for free, because you get we're using the monetization model of like the social kind of games where you have X amount of energy per day and then you play and you earn or whatever like that. Then the actual like cost of the entry fee could be even like 60 or 70% of what you kind of like potentially could win. And the reason why that makes sense is number one is that we have to basically manage the economy and manage it in the flow system. And the other aspect of it is like there's no risk. Like there's no risk for players to play. And if we can make the economy work with whichever kind of balance to kind of take out or redirect the economy in a certain way, then I think we'll find a kind of happy balance between player incentives and making the economy hum. And ultimately, we want to kind of educate players towards that. So like this first 1,000 players for us really means a lot that they get it and they can help make the system work.
That sounds since you're going to entry fee route, that sounds like Zed Run almost, except an actual game that you're playing, not more or less a simulation.
Yeah, I mean, then you're just playing slots, right? So like, I mean, skill based will actually matter. I think moving towards that, like, how do we do in the in-game guilds, right? Basically, like, if you get one of the first generation NFTs, you can submint 12 NFTs. They're your captains of your Yakuza crew, okay? And then much like the barony that you have in MetalCore, we have a very similar thing that within the Yakuza that you make of now your 13 members, you can, basically transfer tokens or, in-game tokens between each other for free, right? And the model works is that as the head of your Yakuza clan, all of your sub mints kick up 1% gross of their winnings to you, right? And the reason why they're doing that is because they're like soul bound by revenue to you. Um, and what we want to do is we want to encourage kind of in-game kind of this clan play and clan versus clan kind of thing like that, because the game is somewhat of a collusion based kind of turn-based game. The second point of this is that for our idea of what is the metaverse is, instead of doing separate titles like MAYG 1, 2, 3, 4, which have nothing to do with it, is that obviously I believe that making a game interoperable needs to be designed at the very beginning. And so for this particular game, it's an arena game. You're basically a bar fighting game or whatever like this, right? But the next game we'd like to make that would be MAYG 2 would be a different genre. So it would be like a Clash of Clans / Mafia Tycoon type of game. But the capital to play that game and buy your buildings and to operate that game and operate your territory would be the capital you bring from the first game, right? And so we're tying the economies together, and then where your clan is already formed. And so, like, let's say that you go into the second game and you get your asses kicked, and then they burn down all your karaoke joints, and then they burn down your ramen bars or whatever like this. You can then take your crew and come back and grind the first game to reinvest back into the second game, right? And so we want to have this kind of persistent kind of in-game guild culture that also follows you, not just the individual. And this is again coming from poker. So in poker, not all players who are skillful have a huge bankroll. So you need an X amount of a bankroll to play at certain limits because of the variance. Like really quickly, it's like if the buy-in for a table at like $1, $2 is like, let's say $300, okay? You need to actually prepare probably $3,000 at a minimum to play that table properly, because you could literally have someone go all in on you like 3 times and you lost those 3 coin flips, right? And you're down like 900, right? But in order to like actually play, and if you think you're really better than the other players, you need to like bring more money back into the table, right? Sometimes for like major tournaments like WSOP, World Series of Poker, that's held every year in Vegas, the buy-in's 10K. So what ends up happening is that sometimes you as a funder, right, you fund your stable of players. So we call them horses. So then you say you give your number one horse like whatever 5K, and then he'll give you 50% of his winnings if he cashes, right? So that particular model is what we also adapted into our model, where there will be entry fees, but there will be some players who play better. And if these players get a more higher kind of support from the main princess, like I'll give you like 50% of my daily chips and you play with them, whatever. Then you give me 3% gross of your winnings. And so these kind of relationships can be made, but it also adds to an efficiency of the liquidity within the game and within the kind of guild structure. Yeah.
That bankroll management sounds pretty aggressive, just 10x. I think I was always doing a bit higher, but I think I was quite
20x
risk
is good.
averse.
Yeah, 20x
Yeah.
is like good. 40x is where you should be at.
Yeah, I know. I think that sounds quite interesting. I don't normally get lost into tokenomics side of things, but when you're saying that the entry fee and the prize, it's not kind of huge. I think that's quite an interesting way of doing it, and I like the idea of building from one game to the next and sort of taking things across, because people talk about interoperability a lot, and the pipe dream is that you take your gun out of one game and you go and take it into your Stardew Valley game in the other, and I think that's just kind of unlikely to happen, to be honest. But having it within the same studio and kind of moving things between different titles, I think that's definitely gonna happen. It won't happen for every game. I know we touched on it a bit before that people don't have to accept this, but I think for some studios it definitely makes sense, and it ties in with, like you say, the kind of clan idea of it. I did see someone come up, but Mac, you came up. Did you have a question or comment?
Hey, what's up, everybody? Yeah, I actually did. I heard the talk about having the two different types of gameplay. One to really regenerate the in-game currency to go play in the next one. And I love that concept. That's the same thing that we're doing over here. pretty much you're going to have your single player game, and that's not meant to really make a bunch of money. Like, even if you're a solid gamer and one of the best, that's not something you're going to be able to play and buy a car or something like that. That's what's going to give you enough capital in the game to go play the multiplayer games that are fun, that are community based. And that's pretty much where we're really trying to push people to. Like, I just wanted to chime in there. Love what you're doing. And shit, let me get a whitelist.
Oh, no, absolutely. I mean, like actually, I really was excited because I saw MetalCore was on this, and I went through your site, and I'm like, oh, mad props, mad respect. I mean, really legitimate studio. I'm such a Mech Warrior fan, and I like was on the Kickstarter for the BattleTech, and yeah, and I wish they had more expansions, but it was fantastic, and I but like with all the Westwood stuff, and yeah, I think that really makes sense. You know what's like pissed me off was like Diablo, like what was it, Diablo 2? I went through it and single player, and then I thought, okay, I have all these items on my single player, and then I went to go play multiplayer, and then I started naked again, right? And starting like if you were to go from like paladin level like 15, and then you were able to port over to the multiplayer, and then later on you play single player in the multiplayer mode, which makes single player like completely useless, right? um but yeah, that's, I think, like if you have like anyone with game experience, design stuff, like no real game developer, I want to watch myself here because I don't want to offend people, but I am going to. Honestly, I don't think like doing this metaverse shit is like real, because like if you're a game designer, you know that you can't just port shit from one thing to the other, because then you just have to dumb it all the way down to like nothing, right? That's when it's interoperable. But like it's basically a metaverse of like you shoot, fly, and you hold hands and like do high fives and do emote dances, and that's it. There's no like real game loop that could really be there that would really take the full utility of your game asset. And then it's like kind of like you've just basically turned it into a cosmetic skin, right? And I think that's totally against the potential of what the NFTs could be. Like we're moving away from the 10x. But here's the whole thing: is like DeFi and making, okay, fantastic, right? Like do it, test it, don't test it, do the audit, don't do the audit, and it's out in like whatever 10 days, right? Making a game like takes like a minimum of like a year and a half, like an actual new game. Like if you and the other thing is like all these fucking like mobile clone motherfuckers. I'm so sorry if you're a clone, mobile clone, hyper casual game developer, right? Like you are in a different universe than us, right? You guys hate each other. You guys undercut each other. You guys like see who can clone faster than the other person, and you guys just copy shit, right? Like we're in a totally different sphere of like whatever. And so like someone's guys who's coming up to me and saying, well, this mobile development company can do like this game, whatever, for in like 3 months in launch or to market, like something like Dookie Dash or whatever like that. That's great. I'm glad for Dookie Dash. I'm glad they did a mini game. And they're looking at art. They're not a game company, whatever like that. And I don't have anything wrong with Dookie Dash doing whatever they're doing and Bored Apes and whatever. More power to them, right? But don't tell me that game development, a fully functional polished game, is going to come out in like 6 months. It, unless it's a complete like clone and you stole the code, and it's code from like 2010, right? And it hasn't been updated. Like there's no fucking way you're going to be able to do that, not with a real game, right? And then that's where like you look at like something like Pegaxi or whatever like that, where it's basically a slot machine, right? Really great graphics, and we're doing all these kind of mechanisms around it. But when you have thin gameplay, then you don't have a way to put burn mechanisms or regulate the economy with a thin gameplay. You guys get what I'm saying? Like, I could do an open economy with poker, but poker is just poker, right? But if I do an open economy with our game, where I can make different weapons, I can have different ranges of weapon, I can have different damage weapons, I can have different rounds of how quickly each round like plays, how many different players I can play with, right? Or change the level design, right? Then I can affect other things that are related with economy that you wouldn't think I could, because let's say that I make the rounds longer. Well, then the output of the total like token emissions is going to take longer, right? let's say I put in more players into like the game, then the token emissions is actually less because now I'm burning more per game, right? And so that's where a lot of the poker knowledge that I had was like, how do you get a player from like 1-2 to 2-4? Or how do you get a player to play multi-table, like 5 tables? Or what is a better kind of setup, like a 50-50 table setup or a freeze out, right? And then what's the mix between tournaments? So this is the kind of know-how that I learned because, you know, that was the nature of it. And the difference is that in poker, people are like betting with money. There's no terminology from where I'm from as a game designer of what is a monetization. Yeah, they're like wagering stuff, and there's an entry fee. I mean, I don't have to make them buy like little gems and you know, chess and kind of figure out what kind of bundle they're gonna do, right? And the fact of the matter is, though, we did have that set up on like the social gaming side, but when you look at even when I look at social gaming, like developers for casinos and like for me, that's like baby stuff. Like I could look at that and like that is so simple. And so what I think for a lot of the game developers right now or designers is that they're really underestimating how difficult this is because they've never seen the data for really open. So I think we're not going to be the only ones to figure it out, and we're figuring it out in this particular genre because it's easy for me to do that because that's my background. But I think whether it's mobile games or MMOs or you know MOBAs and stuff like that, after the data comes out, like after a couple of years, then people are really going to be able to figure that out. For our particular game, we just have a head start. But on the other side, too, is that we're pretty much alone in this kind of head start as well, because until we actually get the proof of concept going with the economy, I don't think anyone is going to basically take my word for what we're kind of doing. So, you know, we only have kind of one way forward at this point. Sorry,
No,
I'm so aggressive. I can't help it.
no, I think it's good. I like it, and I like that it's not the same kind of rhetoric as maybe we could have. I'm surprised that some of the stuff you said, if I'd just read them, maybe I wouldn't have kind of got it the same because of how you've been explaining it as you've been talking. I do like the idea, and I think there will definitely be people who that kind of way of playing it and getting involved is key. And I do think, like you mentioned, I think it will be niche. I don't think it'll be like everyone. Some people will hate the idea. But I think you'll definitely get enough people who do like that kind of thing. I was trying to think kind of my last question, because we've actually gone nearly half an hour over what we normally do. The kind of last bit I was going to say was in terms of so I was looking at the map and you were describing it kind of wormsy, and I've pinned a video to the top. All the people dancing in the club, are there only certain people who I'm trying to kill with my handbag, or do I get points for killing more people? How does that tie in with the amount of people that I'm seeing kind of dancing around?
No, so those are the NPCs. So that was part of the producer and Wukash. Basically, like if the nightclub was like empty, you wouldn't feel the ambiance of the nightclub, right? So the NPCs currently, like, you don't get extra points for them. They're just kind of like there for when you start off, and kind of like, you know, it's like the Kill Bill scene in Kill Bill 1 where Uma Thurman goes and she goes to the Japanese club, and then there's the band playing and the people are just sitting there and eating, right? And then as Uma starts killing everybody, everyone runs away, right? And so you know, it's kind of like setting the first placement there. It's almost like you know, sitting at the table and seeing everyone else before the game starts. But we are gonna like obviously one thing that we're doing is we're adding up power ups. So we're adding up power ups near the center of the map, and so that will force players to try to get there quicker to make the game kind of like more aggressive rather than everyone just hiding from each other. So yeah, we are thinking of certain things like that in order to, I guess, allow people to want to engage. But no, if you were to blow up the bystander, you'd be giving away your position. So yeah, those are just for ambiance of the game.
No, I like that. I think it would be weird if you were chasing just one-on-one around a club and there was no one else in it.
Yeah.
And then just for the last bit, because I was trying to think gameplay, but you've got me thinking tokens, and my mind's going in that direction. with it being in a club and you've got loads of different bits and you've been dropping names of different handbags, which I'm assuming it makes. I don't know much about handbags or shoes.
Yeah.
Do you see there being any kind of sponsorship or ads in it to increase prize pools for people?
Absolutely. So we're doing this kind of luxury. Originally, we put like luxury shooter, but the tagline for the game or the brand is sophisticated, elegant, violent luxury. And, Mickey loves you to death, whatever. And the handbags and everything else like that, we actually created our own like in-game fashion brand called Sin Sygne. It was actually first C. It translates into swan in French, but there was another company that actually has a trademark for swan in English. So we actually got it into the trademark office, and the trademark lawyer's like, it's going to fail if you put the French version in. So we got this, which still is kind of pronounced the same way. But if you actually, when you get into the game, and you guys will be able to get the game and see the game very shortly, like in about, I don't know, like 30 days from now. If you go to the bar stools and stuff like that, like you'll even see like the the beer coasters, and they have like branding on it. And if you see the detail of the actual like beer balls and stuff like that, we're obviously gonna be like a plus 18 game, but like we can basically change those things into like Bacardi bottles or like Johnny Walker bottles. And then also for the fashion, what we'd love to do is get like up and coming fashion brands and literally put those skins in. So the one thing we haven't talked about is accessories. So we close the loop in the game is like you earn the game a token, well, you win the game a token. But in order to get more angry points, that's like a daily energy, or to get more gold to start off with to have a bigger bankroll, right? You're gonna have to buy these accessories, and these accessories will be like sunglasses, dresses, so on and so forth. And you'll have to pay with, some of the in-game currency to buy them, and that's where the branding, hopefully, we're gonna get in. But like as you know, Hermes, basically won a judgment against Birkin NFT. If you guys don't know what a Birkin is basically the most expensive bag, the most luxury expensive bag in the world. It's starts at a minimum of 10K. It can go up to like $200,000 for a bag made out of like alligator skin and stuff like that. And this design duo basically launched this series of Birkin meta bags, meta Birkin bags that had like them in like dinosaur skin and turkey skin and stuff like that. And they got sued because of consumer confusion. But I think for our game, it's a lot different because a video game is entertainment. So, like, if I was a rapper and I was like talking about Hermes or Louis Vuitton, or my Louis Vuittons, or buying for Tiffany for my girl, because it's entertainment, it's part of popular culture. So I hope that people are going to see it that way. But people have a very visceral reaction to our NFTs. So if you go to OpenSea and you see them, I want to say this, okay? We spent like 2 months or 2.5 months on the art, okay? And it's a Korean anime style, but if you look at it, it's really fine art. Like, so the skeletal structure is like really legit. And she's not naked. You see her side boob come out, and she's in panties and different types of panties or whatever like this, right? But we've had two VCs say they're uncomfortable to even talk with us after they saw the PFP collection. And I'm like, okay, so you're willing to look at a bored ape that's mutantized, that has like vomit coming out of its eyeballs and whatever, but like this makes you uncomfortable. And yeah, it does. It does. But the funny thing though is, like, for our target market, which um, is basically Asia or competitive gamers, I think they get a real kick out of it. And we wanted to have something that kind of stands out, but I'd urge you to go and like not have your first reaction to it, but really look at it for a moment as like actually like that we put it in, that we want it at a level of like really game art. And like scroll through the different NFTs, and I think you'll find that the reason why some people do feel they're uncomfortable is because it is eliciting a response that she is fucking sexy, right? I mean, she's our NFTs you can criticize them for whatever you want to say, but there's no fucking way you can't say that our NFTs are not the fucking sexiest, tasteful NFTs out there. And then also like for the tattoos and stuff like that, everything has a meaning there. Every item there has a specific purpose there. They're not for show. Everything basically is either like all the NFTs as well. Like I mean, like Jerry had mentioned this too, is that about like right now you can choose to do an NFT version or not, right? But for us, like you can't get in the game unless you have the NFT. But the NFT that you have that's 2D will be a 3D version in the game. And so we, had that in mind as a gaming NFT, not just as a PFP, that whatever items or that she has, or makeup and jewelry and beauty marks, that would be replicated in the game. So I know that it's a knee-jerk reaction and it's based out of 90s Tokyo, and it doesn't absolve me for any feelings that people might think that this is like exploitive or whatever like this, but it is meant to be sexy as fuck, right? And so I'm not going to apologize for that. But if, people are offended, then you're definitely not the target market. But yeah, that's the one that I want to say about that.
I think offended might be the wrong word. I feel like a bit of a creep with it in my wallet a little bit because I'm an old man, I guess.
You're British. You're British.
That
You'd
would
rather
kind of
like
be
see
it.
wags and not feel like you're creepy because they're already like attached to a soccer player or football player.
When
Than to see
you
it.
when you were saying no, but they'll have such and such in their wallet, I was looking at my wallet at the same time as looking at them, and
Yeah.
I've got like a fox that looks like it's been hit by a car and stuff, and I'm like, yeah, that's fine. So I get the point, yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
but yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to wrap it up because I'm gonna have to go to bed.
Yeah.
But it's been great talking to you both. Thanks for both projects who came up. So we had Jerry, aka Fresco, aka Play Metalcore, who came up and talked to us first, and then we had Sinjin. We didn't have any AKAs, but
Yeah.
I just heard myself back. But
Okay, yeah.
thanks for coming up and sharing your project. I know you're really busy, so it is good that you've decided to spend some of your time with us. And then thanks to everyone who's listened as well, and anyone who hears the recording. Any final words before we knock it on the head from anyone?
I forgot. I got a whitelist for my angry Yakuza girlfriend, and I forgot to mint it. So I need to figure out.
We closed the mint because it was like such a headache because like we realized if we didn't make a mint,
I need one, dude. You convinced me. I want one now.
we're gonna reopen the free mint soon, but anyone on this panel, honestly, just like DM me. We'll sort something out for sure. Golden, you definitely will get. We'll send you one for sure. We've been doing a free mint, but we're doing it in phases. We're trying to figure it out as it goes because there's no way to filter out free mint hunters. It's just not possible. And then they just dump on it, and then the whales, like this is one dude, I think he picked up like 40 of them now. He's just laughing his ass off. Just because he knows my background and we've talked, and he's from like gaming as well, and he thinks the model's great, and so he's just like, oh, the floor price is so cheap, I'll just buy like 5, right? Which seems good, but like, obviously we want it to be distributed and stuff like that. But yeah, we'll be opening up another free mint soon. But I think everyone who's come to your space, especially Gaspode, that none of these guys are like free mint hunters. So I think if my staff is listening, please take a screenshot, and I'm happy to give everyone here like 1 free mint for the next round. And if you're a Wolves DAO, it's always open for someone if you're in Wolves.
Oh, all right, 2 for 1.
Okay.
I want 2 free mints now.
We found our free mint hunter. Yeah, there he is.
Thanks so much, guys, and it was a real pleasure actually hearing everything about metalcore. I've become a fan. I mean, with the background and stuff like that, and it's great to hear like another person who really is a gamer first, and that's where I feel like always most comfortable, like as an identity wise. But you can tell. I mean, I love that question you asked me for Dota too.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I get so excited when people play Dota because it is so much less accessible than League, right? Because it's just a more competitive, like difficult game. So I always love when somebody does play Dota.
Absolutely.
No, I mean, I guess if I want to leave anybody with any parting thoughts, is that like this is a really interesting kind of AMA to be a part of, because like usually, I'm not gonna lie, like when I go and say kind of like what our plan is for going to market and everything, people go like, "That's awesome. We want people to have the successful thing," and people kind of like get really big fans of that. And I love that we have different viewpoints on things, because like we do. I don't think we disagree. I think we're just going about things in two different
Absolutely.
ways, but are both two projects that are building, what I'm confident are going to be two really good, fun, engaging, and like beautiful gameplay experiences. And there's more than one way to skin a cat. And I think like I know like Anna's in the crowd and Grasslow's listening. I know they're doing the same things, right? And so we each have our own spin on it. But it's like I said during like my segment, like I have no doubt that people are going to want to participate in these experiences, no matter what the onboarding process is. And so, yeah, no, it was really cool. Gaspode, thank you for having us on. I had a good time.
Yeah, same with
Yeah.
me. Same feelings. And I think that's the beautiful thing about Web3 is that like we can have these spaces and we can like have it with other companies that are in development and learn from each other and also like collaborate. And we're really not so much in it together, but we're progressing together. And there's just so many ways, again, to skin the cat. But I like this openness because honestly, like who am I really competing against? I'm competing against like Web2 publishers, right? And I'm competing against like a system that basically every time you finish a game, they fire like 75% of the people, right? And this entire industry is all about passion, and we shit on like all like the passionate developers and designers. And if there can be any Web3 games that basically become forever games because the persistence of the in-game asset as the NFT that can totally be built around an ecosystems, then I'm all for that, and that's who my enemy is, if I want to be totally blunt. But if they give me a huge acquisition offer, I'll really consider it.
They're your friend then.
Oh, and Golden, you got a hand up?
Yeah, I just want to say, for MetalCore, I look forward to watching Jim Karen stream more. I hope you do like a week, like a monthly, like weekend thing, so that some people do work Saturdays, some people work Sundays, or at least they get in on Fridays. And for Shinjin for the Yakuza girls, I'm really excited about that because my entrance to NFTs was Z.Run, and they have a huge community of DJs that I think your game kind of sort of fits because there's actual gameplay behind it. So I'm looking forward to seeing more that you guys have to offer.
But no, thanks for that, and thanks to Jim Kieran and Golden for coming up and asking questions. Thanks for everyone listening. We may or may not be here next week. It depends whether I'm taking a bit of time off or not. Keep an eye out though, still be tweeting stuff. Make sure to follow the games so you can see what they are. There's also a list that I've got, which is all of the games that we've had up previously. And just to touch on what someone said about this is something in Web3, when I started it, I never thought I'd just manage to talk to 70 different game developers about building games. So I think Web3's really given me as well an opportunity that I definitely never thought would actually happen. But remember, as you're going out there looking at these different games, to find games and play games that you enjoy. And I'll catch you all in a bit. Cheers.